New Iowa poll. Biden and Sanders stand out among likely caucus goers. Of course, they left out a kind of important detail, which I'm going to tell you. The field of Democrats seeking the party's nomination for president in 2020 is one of the largest the party has seen. But for Iowa's most likely caucus attendees, two names stand above the rest: former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. The latest CNN Des Moines Register Mediacom poll finds Biden and Sanders near even at 27% and 25% respectively, with no other candidate earning even 10% support. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts is at 9%. Senator Kamala Harris of California, 7%, come closest. And the rest of the 20-person field tested in the poll, just former Congressman O'Rourke of Texas, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, and Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota are at 3% each, rising above 1%. But here's the even more important part. The numbers haven't shifted dramatically since our December poll. That's actually not true. Biden and Sanders were the top two then, though their relative position has tightened. While Biden led by 13 points in December, he and Sanders are about even now. And the flurry of energy behind O'Rourke following his narrower than expected loss to Senator Cruz in November seems to have dissipated some, with his numbers slipping 6 points in the last few months. For the rest of the field, though, things are about the same now as they were then. So, CNN kind of told you the news here, but kind of didn't say it emphatically. Joe Biden's down 5 points, and Bernie Sanders is up 6 points. Kamala Harris, she's up 2 points, from 5% in December to 7%. Bernie Sanders is up 6 points, from 19% to 25%. Joe Biden down 32 to 27. So he's down 5 points. So let's look at each of those. And by the way, Elizabeth Warren is up only 1 point. So I think the biggest takeaway here is actually Biden down 5 points, because Biden being down 5 points would indicate two things. Number one, Bernie Sanders, now that he is announced and now that his message is out there, and frankly, he had a hell of a lot better debut of the 2020 campaign than he did the 2016 campaign. 2016, he leaves the Senate. He does a kind of impromptu press conference on the Senate lawn. It's not really anything special. Then obviously it built up, but in the beginning it was very disorganized. He barely had any staff, whatever. Now, great speech in Brooklyn that we covered. Great speech in Chicago. Getting a little bit more personal with the audience, with his fan base. He's not a celebrity. He's not a musician. With his voters, and 1 million volunteers. And you see, I think him really doing things to de-radicalize what the media, set as a narrative that he was radical. So he's talking. No, what socialism means is human rights. I'm for human rights. People have a right to health care. People have a right to education. These shouldn't be luxuries. So I think that message is penetrating, while Joe Biden, the more he kind of sits aside, whatever he's doing, probably just trying, because he's one of these old guard politicians who thinks, he thinks how he's going to win is dominating the donor class. So he's probably just doing a lot of behind the scenes, trying to secure all the heavyweight donors away from Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, all that. But the more he's away, and also the more he's away, even though he hasn't announced, the more some not so kind things are coming out about him. Ty, our photojournalist, just did a video showing him over the years with, I don't use the word racial because it's not racial, it's racist. I mean, Joe Biden was against busing African-American children in to go into white schools, or white children to go to black schools. You watch, Jen and Ty both did videos on this, but you watch some of the things he said on the Senate floor during the crime bill debate. He didn't use the term super predators, but he might as well have been talking about these super predators that, his friend Hillary Clinton said. He was talking about, I don't care what made them turn to crime. We need to put them in jail. We don't want them near I don't want them near my mother. I don't want them near, your mother. And to hell with, what their circumstances were. To hell with all that. So I think the more Bernie, who's already declared, he's out there, he's doing great on digital media, a lot of great videos, a lot of great rallies. Now he just went to Iowa for several rallies. So he's rising as more people see him and more people hear his message, whereas Joe Biden is falling because he's not out there. But also, even though he's not out there, in credit, I will give credit, I've seen CNN mildly cover some of his previous racist statements. I've seen Washington Post. Washington Post is the one that unearthed this statement he made in 1975. Let me get it up for you. Joe Biden, busing, Washington Post. Hey, if the corporate media does something right, you got to give them credit. There's nothing wrong with that. So, this is what Joe Biden said in the 1970s. I do not buy the concept popular in the 60s, which said, we have suppressed the black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now give the black man a head start, or even hold the white man back to even the race, Biden told a Delaware-based weekly newspaper in 1975. I don't buy that. So when this went live, a lot of people were like, oh, it was 30, 40 years ago. Can you imagine if it came out that Bernie Sanders said the black man shouldn't get a head start to even the race? It doesn't matter if he said that in 1945. They would be calling for him to drop out, and frankly, they'd be calling for him to resign from the Senate, if we're keeping it real. I don't, honestly, yes, obviously it was a different time then, but just the sheer not so subtle racism in that tone. The black man? Bernie Sanders wasn't talking like that in the 1970s. And I assure you, Bernie Sanders wasn't talking like, oh, well, I don't believe that they deserve a head start or even or even hold the white man back to even the race. It's not a race if one person was basically pushed down at the beginning of the race. It's not a race if one group of people have essentially been disinvited from the race. It's not a race when one group of people have literally been trampled in the race. I don't know what other way to say it that would get across, just the racism and what he said. And by the way, it's, yes, it was 1975, but the Voting Rights Act passed in the 1960s. You know what I mean? Bernie Sanders in the 1960s was getting arrested, marching for civil rights. So, there's really, you could make excuses. Oh, it was a different time. He's evolved, blah, blah, blah. But has he evolved? Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.